There's a reason pork sits at the heart of British food culture. The Sunday roast, the bacon sandwich, the sausage sizzling on a summer barbecue for millions of us. Pork isn't just a meal, it's comfort, memory, and tradition rolled into one. The UK pork industry employs tens of thousands of people, supports countless family farms, and has spent decades building some of the highest farm animal welfare standards in the world. We genuinely love this about British food. The image of a proud, well-run farm, an honest butcher, a trustworthy logo on the packet. It's a story worth being proud of. And for many farms, that story is completely true. So let's be honest about why we're here. This isn't an attack on pork, on farmers, or on British food. The vast majority of pig farmers genuinely care about their animals and their craft. What we're protecting is something different. You're right, as a shopper, to know what's actually behind the label you're trusting with your money. Together, we're not adversaries to this industry. We're allies of every honest farmer who's doing it right, and every consumer who deserves to know the difference. Here's the part that should give us all pause. Trusted logos and reassuring branding don't automatically mean trusted practices. We've seen it before, beloved brands, that quietly let standards slip while keeping the same comforting packaging. The image stays warm and familiar long after the substance behind it has changed. The fear worth sitting with tonight is simple. What if some of the labels we've trusted without question for years aren't telling us the full story, and we've simply never had reason to look closer? We spent weeks going through consumer research, advertising rulings, government consultations, and independent investigations into UK pork labelling and welfare claims. What we found is a countdown of 7 things every pork buyer in this country deserves to understand before their next shop. And stay with us to the end, because we're also revealing exactly what to look for instead, the genuinely trustworthy options hiding in plain sight. Before we get into it, if you think other shoppers deserve this information too, hit the like button now. This isn't about boosting a channel. It's about making sure the next person standing in the meat aisle, trying to do right by their family and their values, has the same information we're about to share. 1. The logo everyone trusts but few understand. Walk into almost any UK supermarket and you'll see it. The red tractor logo, stamped on the vast majority of British pork. It's the most recognisable food assurance mark in the country. The trouble is, recent consumer research found that nearly 2/3 of shoppers don't actually understand what the logo guarantees. Many assume it rules out practices it doesn't actually prohibit. Picture a parent grabbing a pack of sausages, glancing at the familiar green and red logo and feeling reassured without ever reading further, because that's exactly what the logo is designed to make us feel. To be fair, Red Tractor does represent a baseline of food safety and traceability, and many members genuinely exceed it. But baseline and high welfare aren't the same thing, and the confusion is real. Our advice: treat the logo as a starting point, not a finish line. Look for additional certifications layered on top. Speaking of layers, let's talk about a labelling gap that catches out even careful shoppers. 2. Outdoor bred doesn't mean what you think. Labels like outdoor bred sound idyllic, and to be fair, they're not lying. But outdoor bred typically only means the piglet was born outdoors before being moved indoors to be finished for market, often spending the majority of its life undercover. It's a world apart from genuine free-range or organic rearing, yet the language is similar enough that most shoppers assume far more outdoor time than the animal actually had. One shopper review summed it up well, expressing surprise after researching the term to find the pig pictured happily in a field had spent most of its life in a shed. Both systems are legal and regulated. This isn't about condemning indoor farming, which has its own welfare protocols. It's about the gap between the picture on the pack and the reality behind it. The advice: look specifically for outdoor reared or free range which describe genuinely different systems. Now, here's a labelling issue that goes beyond welfare and straight to where your pork actually came from. 3. The British label that isn't always quite British. Food labelling rules allow products to display Union Jacks and phrases like packed in the UK, even when the pork inside was raised elsewhere, often in countries with lower welfare standards than Britain's own legal minimums, such as permitting practices restricted here. Campaigners and government consultations alike have flagged this as a genuine source of consumer confusion, with the vast majority of respondents to a recent government review supporting mandatory, clearer country of origin labelling. To be fair, this isn't deception by any one company. It's a legal loophole in how packed differs from produced or reared. But it matters, because shoppers actively choosing British pork for its welfare standards may not be getting what they paid for. The advice? Look for the words born, reared and slaughtered in the UK, not just a flag or packed in Britain. From confusion about origin, let's move to confusion about what's actually inside the product itself. 4. What's really in your budget sausage? Entry-level, economy-range sausages and processed pork products are permitted to contain meaningfully lower meat content than premium ranges, padded out with water, rusk, and seasoning to hit legal minimums rather than nutritional ideals. None of this is illegal minimum meat content rules exist precisely to allow this tier to exist affordably. But customer feedback on budget ranges consistently describes a noticeably different texture and flavour compared to higher tier products from the very same retailer, which makes sense once you see the ingredient list. This genuinely matters for value-conscious shoppers trying to stretch a budget without realising how much less meat they're actually getting. The advice? Flip the pack over meat percentage is required by law to be on the label, so compare it directly rather than trusting the price tier alone. Now, let's look at a real case that exposed just how far the gap between label and reality can stretch. 5. When inspections were announced in advance. In 2024, undercover investigative journalism uncovered conditions falling well short of acceptable standards at a red tractor-assured pig farm supplying major retailers through a third-party processor. The footage led to the farm's expulsion from the scheme and renewed scrutiny of a long-standing practice, assurance bodies giving member farms advance notice even for supposedly unannounced inspections. Animal welfare organisations were quick to point out that the very same farm had passed an official audit just months before the footage was filmed. To Red Tractor's credit, the organisation acted on the findings and has since faced pressure to tighten its inspection protocols. But the case illustrates something bigger than one bad farm. A scheme is only as strong as its weakest enforcement gap. This matters because it shows certification alone can't replace genuine, ongoing scrutiny. The advice: support brands and retailers that commit to unannounced third-party audits and don't assume certification means continuous compliance. Now, onto a concern that affects nearly every pack of bacon in the country. 6. The processed pork question nobody likes talking about. Bacon, ham, and other processed pork products are classified by global health authorities as a Group 1 carcinogen when consumed regularly in significant quantities, largely due to nitrites and processing methods used for preservation and colour. This isn't a scandal exclusive to any single UK brand. It's an industry-wide characteristic of how processed meat has traditionally been made, and most manufacturers comply fully with current safety regulations on nitrite levels. To be fair, occasional consumption carries a very different risk profile than daily reliance on processed pork, and plenty of people enjoy bacon as an occasional treat without issue. But the information isn't always front and centre on packaging, and many shoppers are simply unaware of the classification. This matters because informed choice requires, well, information. The advice: Look for nitrite-free or naturally cured options where you can, and treat processed pork as an occasional pleasure rather than a daily staple. And that brings us to the concern that ties every single point on this list together. 7. The real risk. A trust system built on logos, not proof. Here's our number one concern. Back in 2009, an industry advertising campaign claiming red tractor pork was simply high welfare pork was banned by the Advertising Standards Authority after complaints that it misled the public. The watchdog ruled that practices like farrowing crates and tail docking remained genuinely contentious even on assured farms. More than a decade later, fresh research shows the same fundamental confusion persists. Most consumers still believe a familiar logo guarantees far more than it does. That's the heart of everything we've uncovered tonight. It isn't that British pork production is dishonest at its core. It's that the system asks us to extend enormous trust based on a small green and red symbol without giving us the tools to verify what that trust is actually built on. Protecting good farming means demanding labels that tell the truth, not just labels that feel reassuring. So after all of that, here's what you absolutely should buy. Look for the RSPCA Assured logo alongside Red Tractor. It represents a genuinely higher, independently audited welfare standard, and it's why discerning shoppers actively seek it out, even at a slightly higher price. Soil Association Organic Pork is another underrated option, guaranteeing outdoor access and restricted routine antibiotic use by law, not just by marketing language. And don't underestimate your local independent butcher. Many can tell you the actual farm your pork came from, something no supermarket shelf label can offer. Insider tip: ask your butcher directly. Where was this pig born, raised, and slaughtered? A confident, specific answer is usually the best welfare label there is. So where does this leave us? British pork farming, at its best, is genuinely something to be proud of. Skilled, often higher welfare, and full of farmers doing right by their animals. But, at its best, isn't guaranteed by a logo alone, and the gap between marketing language and farming reality is real enough to matter. Staying informed isn't about distrust for its own sake. It's about making sure our loyalty and our money go to the standards we actually believe in. Now we want to hear from you. Which product or brand should we investigate next? Drop your suggestions in the comments. This channel exists because of what you bring to it. Until next time, read the label, ask the question, and remember, together, we're the reason standards have to keep improving. Stay curious, stay informed. That's how we eat smarter, together.